Hey guys, welcome to Massive Iron Live. Welcome to Friday, August 30th, the last Friday in August. We're feeling a little bit fuzzy. The beard's coming a little bit back. Maybe we're preparing for winter. I don't know. Welcome to Massive Iron Live, guys. I'm here every Friday answering your questions. It's kind of a podcast. It's kind of a live Q&A. It's just the thing we do, and we don't really have to worry about labeling it, right? We're just kind of here talking about lifting. So I appreciate you guys being here. Before we get started, a couple of things. Number one, if your questions don't go through, try shortening them. Sometimes longer questions don't go through very well on the YouTube. If that doesn't work, try rewording them. Sometimes YouTube has really weird word filters, wordy filters. And if that doesn't work, if YouTube is still ticking you off, and it can do that for random reasons, you can head over to Instagram at Ben the Barman, slide into my DM. I answer every question. And I always do on Instagram. So how you guys doing? I've had an amazing month of training, and I don't say that lightly. I'm completely back on track. Things have gone really, really well. My deadlift is going up. Bench press, I did 225 for 10 sets of 10 this week. Pretty darn manageable. If you guys haven't seen my new bench press program, more of the high volume long program, that's when I've started this week. I kind of got the idea. So I'm going to do a 10 by 10. I did 10 by 10 with 225. Next week, I'm going to move up 5 pounds and do 235. And if I fail to hit 10 reps on the last set, then I'm just going to go down to 9 sets. So anyway, I'm going to be running that program. If you guys want to join me or give that a test run, you don't have to do a 10 by 10. You can do a 6 by 6. You can do an 8 by 8. You can do a 6 by 10. I showed you guys how to do that. So check out the video earlier in this week. Overhead press or seated pin press, I got 225 by 5. Doing really well on that. So training is going good. Just to frame that, I'm not a spring chicken. I'll be 57 in October, right? So I try to not just talk the talk, walk the walk. I don't have any beef with any other strength coaches. I don't know what they do, but always know that standing in front of you is someone that walks the walk. That'll be 57 this year. And I'm as strong as ever. And I'm as big as ever. I'm not losing a damn thing. And I'm going to keep fighting until I don't have any breaths left to fight. So how you guys doing? I hope you guys have had a good training week. I want you guys to know that no question is off limits, meaning diet, training, nutrition off topic. Obviously, we don't handle crude or silly topics, but if something's been asked 1,000 times before, don't hesitate to post. I got a couple of quick questions I want to dive into before we officially get started. Not Real said, could you please let me know how the check-ins are structured? Is there a weekly call? And I said, what check-ins? Because I just want to clarify. He said, for coaching, I check in daily, Monday through Friday. I'm not a check-in once a week coach. I have a coaching app. I check in every single day with every client. I'm going to look in and see if you have any form videos for review. I'm going to see if you weighed in. I'm going to see if you have any questions. I'm going to comb through your workouts. We comb through things daily. I leave people alone on Saturday and Sunday. I still encourage them to post, and I just get caught up on Monday. Not Real came back and said, I saw you mentioned on your newsletter at the end where you advertise your coaching services. You mentioned we'll also have a week. No, we don't do a weekend check-in to keep anybody on track. That was a mistake. If that appeared in the newsletter, that was a typo. I check in Monday through Friday. So 5 days a week. And for those of you who are interested, you can hit me up with more questions. I'd be glad to answer. Before we dive into things, I just saw Big Ben tuning in from London. Ben is a long-term client, so have fun, Ben. I'm glad you're able to overhead press. That's a huge positive. I want to answer a question that I saw pop up before we dive into everything else, and we'll start with Jonathan. Alpha Destiny said he cut at 73 grams of protein, maintained his muscle mass. Uh, sorry for it's not off topic or sorry, get cut off, but how is this possible? A couple things here. This is something I've taught over and over again. Number one, the paranoia that you're going to lose muscle mass on a cut is silly. It's almost impossible to lose appreciable amounts of muscle mass on a cut. What I mean is that once you build mass on a small mini cut or even a longer cut where you're going to lose 20, 25 pounds of fat, it's almost impossible to lose any amount of mass. It's way overblown. It's a paranoia created by this industry. So what I tell people is once you have the mass, it's really hard to lose it unless you stop training or you're starving yourself, right? Guys that are cutting for shows really aren't losing mass. It's a lot of hype and a lot of nonsense. Now, do I think Alpha Destiny should have gone down to 120 grams of protein? No, I don't think that's a wise approach, but obviously it's going to work. If it works for him, it works, right? There's nothing wrong. I don't like going down to arbitrary low protein levels. But if he felt better on having a little bit more carbs, that's on him. The thing you guys need to understand is, the paranoia that the body is super fragile on a cut and somehow you're going to lose tons of muscle mass. It's nonsense. When you enter a cut, you're going to be glycogen depleted. You're going to feel a little bit flat. You're going to lose a little bit of water. You're just not going to feel generally. It depends on the individual, but you might not feel as energetic. But you're not going to lose muscle mass, guys, unless you stop training or you just completely do something super extreme. I've seen guys that have done 30-day fasts, 30-day complete food fasts, and haven't lost muscle. Right now, I'm certainly not advocating it, but the body is kind of a master at homeostasis. If you continue to lift, it's not really good. You're encouraging it to maintain mass. So, do I recommend the average individual cut down their protein during a cut? No. The average individual should try to get 35% of their calories from protein simply because it maximizes food volume. It forces you to rely on lean protein sources and it maximizes food volume. But specifically with 0.73 grams per pound of body weight, whatever that number shook out to be, you're just always remember the body's not that fragile. On the other hand, don't seek arbitrary numbers. Whenever you see me, Alpha Destiny, Joe Blow, or Johnny Spinkter on social media doing something, you have to do what's reasonable for you. You don't want to just say, I'm going to cut to 120 grams of protein during my cut because so-and-so did it, right? No disrespect to anybody, but who cares? You have to align your cut in a way that makes sense for you from a food volume standpoint, from a food preference standpoint. You'll be absolutely fine. Always remember the paranoia and fear over losing mass on a cut is about 99% nonsense. All right, let's go back up to the top of the chain, starting off with a good one. All right, Ernie, how's it going, Ernie from Team Massive? Ernie's a client of mine. You said you like the jammer arm rows. I got a jammer arms on my rack back here, and I like the rows. I stand up, and the arms kind of face down and away from me, and I row up towards the body like I was doing a standing row. I can really feel the back work really well on these jammer arm rows, and unlike a barbell row, I can set them down at the low end position, start almost like a pendlay row, and it doesn't stress my lower back. I absolutely love this. I use the jammer arms for shrugs as well. You can use them for an RDL. You can use them for jammer arm RDLs. You can use them. I use them for incline chest presses, decline chest presses, depending on the angle and the seat of your bench. You can set up a decline or incline. You can do them for shoulder presses. They really can replace almost all machines. If you have a really sturdy bench and you want a little bit of variety for your home gym, I would at least look into them, right? So good morning, Joe B. What's going on? Joe B is a client of mine. And Yvonne from Team Massive. Good morning, Team Massive. Happy Friday. What's going on? Andy's Kitchen Garden. I almost read Andy's Kitchen Garage. Apologies. Do we post questions here on Discord? You can post questions anywhere you want. I have a Discord. I have a Team Massive forum community on Discord. You can post questions over there. You can post questions here on live. You can post questions wherever convenient for you guys. I have a lot of people that cross post questions. So whenever is convenient for you guys. If you're overweight and losing weight, is it still okay to progress in lifts? Yeah. I mean, lift heavy. You really don't want to train above 85% of your 1 rep max because you're lower on glycogen, you're lower on energy, you're using a very intense weight, and this is only going to increase the risk of injury. You don't want to be doing really 87.5% of your 1 rep max on squats or deadlifts or even bench. You don't dial down the weight and train like a wet noodle. But when you're training on a cut, the thing you want to naturally take a +1 if it's going to be given to you. If you're on bench press and you're on rep 7 and you know you can easily get rep 8 on a cut, take it. Don't overthink this stuff, right? Don't try to create a formula. I must save reps on a cut for during a bulk because X, Y, and Z. Don't create a formula, right? Focus on training hard. Don't overthink this stuff. Don't try to box ourselves in with, I can only gain mass during this and I should only do this during that, right? Be safe and smart. The general advice I give on a cut is if you can steal a safe quality rep on an exercise, take it. Every exercise is going to be different, and some exercises you're going to be able to progress during a cut. You're not going to be on a long prolonged cut in general. So just be safe, smart, take the reps if they come, and you'll be absolutely fine. At the end of the day, if you build a lot of strength up over a 10-year period of time, all these little bumps in the road, like minor periods of bulking and cutting, aren't really going to matter. We're really looking at the bigger picture in the long run, if that makes sense. Do you ever recommend implementing refeeds during a cut? If somebody is mentally fatigued with a cut, or they need a break, or they're going on a date night or whatever, then we dial it back up to maintenance, right? If someone feels the need to binge eat, overeat, abuse, or whatever, they got some other things they need to sort out, right? They need to sort some things out. Like if you just can't go on in life without having an abusive nachos eating session, you might want to sit down with a food counselor because, look, there are times when I just want to dive into a tub of ice cream, right? Maybe stress, maybe. I'm not judging because that sort of thing can come up in life, right? But if you're at the point where you need to like abuse yourself with food, you need to sort that out. And I mean that with love and kindness. I was a food abuser. Okay. I was a food abuser. I needed to sort my stuff out. Now, when I want ice cream, when I want this, I want that, I don't abuse my body. I don't even like getting to the point where I feel full or stuffed. I don't like that feeling at all. But you can I'm not saying Paladin would be wanting to abuse himself with food. You certainly can go up to maintenance. What I'm really saying is, I don't like somebody using a refeed as an excuse to overeat or binge eat or food abuse, right? Like, for example, not you, Paladin, but anybody could say, I've had 2 good weeks on my cutting diet. I'm going to have a refeed day. And what that means is they're going to eat anything they want day and drink all the beer they want day. And a lot of times that's the way it goes, right? Oh, I just had a refeed day. Well, what did you have? Well, I had 7 beers. We went out, I had nachos, I had appetizers, I had this, that. Just absolute a pile of crap, right? That wasn't a refeed day. That was a re-abuse day, if that makes sense. So weight loss doesn't generally stall. And Paladin and I got into this over in Team Massive a little bit and sorted this out. So Big Andy from Andy's Kitchen Garden. if you are overweight and losing weight via restricted calories, oh yeah, we already tackled that. Posted twice. Sorry, is a hex bar deadlift effective? A hex bar deadlift is a compound movement. It is going to hit your body in varying degrees depending on weaknesses. If you had never trained your legs and you had a very strong upper back, and then you started to do hex bars, you might pick up some quad soreness. Now, we don't want to compartmentalize a compound movement and try to say it's 23% quads, 54% upper back, 22% traps or whatever. We're not in the business of doing that. We're in the business of looking at the bigger picture. What is the bigger picture? Can I put together a quality group of exercises for each area or muscle group? That's what we are about. The hex bar is not specifically a leg press exercise, though the quads are involved. The quads are involved to a varying degree, generally more minor. You're not going to build up massive quads just from using the hex bar, though it will hit that area indirectly to a degree. So no, it's not I wouldn't consider it a quad building exercise. I've never seen anybody build massive quads from hex bars. Big Mike M. When it comes to the deadlift and hip control, is it best to lower the weight until the hips don't move? It's best because you're already doing normal warm-up sets, Mike. Let's say Mike is starting at 365 or 405. We're using this just as an example for his first set on deadlifts. You're doing the bar by 10, you're doing 135 by 6 to 8, you're doing 225 by 5, you're doing 275 for 3 or 4, you're doing 315 for 1 or 2. You're already doing a ton of lighter work. Those are called your warm-up sets. So if you have a minor dialing in issue on your hips, when it comes to your hips coming up a little bit as you pull on the deadlift, we don't need to scrap everything. If your form is complete junk, like Fred Sanford junk, then we need to maybe dial off and dial things in. Mike, you need to understand, Mike's a client of mine. I'm trying to get everybody to the black belt level when it comes to deadlifts. So you're at the 90% level. I'm trying to get you to the 98% level because perfection is impossible. No, you don't need to drop weight. You just need to continue to practice that on your warm-up sets, if that makes sense, because you're only a small degree away. You just need it to click. You just really need to focus on what you're doing and don't let those hips come up. A lot of times we get so focused on pulling the bar off the ground that we're not focused on the hips. The hips tend to rise up a little bit on the deadlift if you're not watching them. You have to make that your primary focus, even if it feels like you're initiating the pull off the ground a little bit more slowly. Big Jonathan, good morning, Steve. I liked your recent video you did on how much muscle you can gain in 4 months. Thank you for watching that. But how can we measure how much muscle you can in a general sense. I mean, you want to measure your arm size monthly, flexed, not post-workout, not pumped, your leg size flexed. You want to monitor your weight. If you're seeing your arms and legs going up over the course of a year, then you know you're bulking properly. If your body fat percentage is staying about the same over the course of a year, but you're gaining an inch on your arms, then you're doing it properly. Does that make sense? So number one, we have to trust the process. Number two, we have to measure and take personal data. You might only gain a 1/4 inch on your arms or a 1/3 inch on your arms during a bulk. And the bad news is that when you measure that, it might look the same because of measurement errors, right? And you might get frustrated and say, I'm not doing anything. But if you are training properly using kind of the techniques and principles and pillars of success that I teach here on Massive Iron, and you are nailing your bulks and you're nailing your hard training and you're nailing your progressive overload, you are building muscle. And if you are uncertain if something is out of place, That's where I step in. I'm here to help you guys. So just let me know. Big Bob the Builder. Steve, if one chooses to start your new bench press program, the 10 by 10, how many days a week once? You can do you only want to do that once. You don't want to do that multiple times a week. I built into the program different chest assistance exercises. You could, on a second day, 2 or 3 days later, do another 3 sets for chest or even bench if you want to, but I would not do more than that out of the gate. I would start with a 10 by 10, and then maybe when you have another upper day or when you have another shoulder day or something like that, you could add in 3 sets on bench, but I would not start more than 13 sets on chest and bench total out of the gate. And how you slice it and dice it's going to depend on your programming preference, if that makes sense. And if you need any help, just let me know. Good morning, Stein. How's it going? Let me get a drink. We have the Ultra Strawberry Dreams Monster, become my second favorite. What's going on? How many exercises, quality choices when they have limited progression opportunity? How can exercises be quality choices? When you reach a point, if you train long enough, you're going to cap out some exercises, right? What I mean is they're going to turn in from fast progressors to slow grinders, okay? If you have a slow grinder exercise and you have not built a lot of mass, then you probably need to consider changing it out for something else. Let's say you don't even have 15-inch arms and your lat pull downs, you simply can't progress at all, but everything else is progressing. You probably need to consider changing that out, right? It's okay to have one exercise that is kind of a slower progressor in the mix, if that makes sense. But like for me, I've been training, I'm going on 39 years, and the lat pull down really isn't doing anything for me. It's just been stagnating. It's not like I'm going to be lat pulling 500 pounds, right? So at some point, you need to either change the exercise out to something that still has a little bit more progression opportunity, or you just have to ride it out. When you've been training for a long time, there's going to be a lot of lifts you're going to accumulate that are going to become slow progressors. And that's kind of the nature of the game after 5, 6, 7 years. That doesn't mean you necessarily need to abandon those exercises, but the late intermediate game is slow progression. So you just have to continue to focus on hard training. And a lot of whether you should remove an exercise has to do with context. So I hope that makes sense a little bit. Big Eric Redbeard. When you're coaching absolute beginners, do you recommend straight sets? Usually when somebody comes to me, unless they have never touched the weights before, and those folks do occur. Like if somebody's never touched the weights before, we're not going to be doing 2s and 3s, right? We might be working on squats and deadlifts in the background, but we're going to be doing like 2x5s, 2x6s, things like that, just to kind of work on form. If somebody has a reasonable level of experience when they come to me, but they're still pretty much a beginner, we might do 2s or 3s. Generally, we'll do 2s or 3s, and we'll do a lot of straight sets with optional bulldozer sets on exercises just to kind of feel out how things are going. When you start with any client, when I start with any client, I can't assume, right? So the first phase, the first couple of weeks is like a dance. We're getting to know, each other. I'm getting to know their eating habits, their training habits, their reporting habits, what exercises they like, what they don't like, how the time in gym is. Some folks might take 2.5 hours on a workout. It might take you an hour and a half because they don't have the work capacity, and that's okay. Not everybody has the same work capacity. So if somebody's a rank beginner, we're probably not going to do 2s or 3s at all unless they're very, very proficient and a mutant. Big Scotty MC. How do you like fixed weight shoulder presses for high reps to get volume on shoulder day? Or would you do this with dumbbells? What do you mean by fixed weight? Progression is the driver, right? If we're not pushing for more reps on at least one set of an exercise, then we start to get into junk volume territory. If you're an advanced lifter like me and you want to go in and just do, like 10 sets of 10 with 225 on bench, there's room to play around when you're advanced because you're not going to lose mass. But there's a difference between mass losing stage or mass holding stage and mass building stage. What do you mean about fixed weight? You have to explain. Are you saying no sets push for max reps? Then you're not really doing hypertrophy work. You're doing hold steady work. So maybe you can clarify. You could add a little bit of volume in, and that might shock your muscles for a week or two, but you're not going to get any value out of that other than that minor stimulus period. Have you ever had clients or such that were satisfied when reaching around 80% of their gains? Everybody has different goals. Not everybody wants to be a mass monster, and getting people to 80% of their mass levels is still quite the challenge because it requires a lot of hard work and consistency. So I have people all over the board that, probably only maybe 60% of my clients are after maximum mass and strength, maximum mass, not, I would say a smaller percentage care about maximum strength. A lot of people just want to look better, add 10 pounds of muscle, improve how they feel. They have kids, maybe be more functional. So, yeah, I've had clients all over the board. Cruising is the easy part. Once you have the amount of mass you want, it's very easy to maintain that mass. You don't have to do any shenanigans. You could really cut down on your weekly volume and you would be fine. It's really hard to lose mass. Good morning, pre-workout live. Good morning, Josh Megaroids. What do we got in here? Do we have any strawberry dreams? We have sodium benzoate. That doesn't sound like a strawberry dream. We have vegetable juice color. Okay. Big Mike M. Best advice for a newbie that's never worked out. Dumbbells and machines are the best place to start. And then as you pick up some steam, once you get past, we can still work on deadlifts or squats if you're obsessed about them, but dumbbells and machines are going to give you your best initial hypertrophy bang for the buck because the big posterior movements have, number one, they're more technical to learn, right? So they're going to take time, especially if you don't have a proper coach, unless you're super lucky. And they're going to have more of a central nervous system penalty or it's just going to take a little bit longer to, technically connect with the movement and the movement pattern. So it's okay to start on these lifts, but we don't want to overstress the lifts. You really want to focus on machines and dumbbells and any barbell exercises that have a low cost of initiation. Like a bench press is not a technical lift. You lay down and push the weight off your chest. And as long as you're not a Nobuchevsky and doing something really ridiculous, you're absolutely fine. Barbell Beauty, happy Friday. Team Massive, let's crush this weekend. Absolutely. If you had to choose one, Big limbs, small torso, or the opposite? Big limbs, arms, legs, small torso. No, I don't want to look like a giant leg and arm guy with a small chesticle and back. You would look like a weirdo, a weirdie, a cuckoo. I don't know, man. A big chest and small arms, small legs. You can kind of hide a little bit. I don't know. You guys can let me know what you think. I don't want any part of that, but I don't want to look like big arms and limbs. Who knows, right? Shelly, good morning, Shelly. Glad to have you here. We missed you this week, and live starts now. Before I get into things, or before I continue, we have a new community. If you're interested, you can hit me up on Instagram at Ben the Barman. I'll send you the free link to that. We just moved our community, and I appreciate everyone that took some time and was patient with me. The last 4 years, we've seen quite a raise in prices on things, and I've been trying not to raise my coaching prices much, if any. So I'm trying to cut back on spending money on a lot of these other little things that nickel and dime a small business. We had a community at Mighty Networks that was costing me like $150 per month. And over at Discord, I think we have the same features, a little bit more streamlined. But if you're interested in joining us, please do. We would love to have you. All right. Can you please let me know how the check-ins are? Sorry, while I run through that. Anybody that's interested in coaching, I check in Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. 5 days a week. Big Josh Megaroids. I'm working out a lot. There's a story why I call them Megaroids, but I think Josh posted his pictures on Instagram once, and somebody called them Megaroids. And as things happen right on the internet, I'm working a lot of overtime this week. I have 1 day to work out. What would you do? I wouldn't even do deadlifts. I'd just skip those. I'd probably lead off with a trapezoid exercise because you can be a little bit more forgiving if you don't do deadlifts in a week. I would probably do 1 to 2 sets of squats and then 2 sets of everything else. Bench, dumbbell, whatever makes sense for you time-wise. You could even do 1 set of bench and then 1 set of dumbbell bench, 1 set of seated cable rows, 1 set of lat pull-downs. If you could do whatever makes sense to you as long as you're not overworking the warm-up sets, because switching exercises can sometimes create a time intensity, so to speak, just because you have so many warm-up sets. So squats, I don't like to get more than a week away from, because I feel like I lose connection. I lose some of that tendon and connective tissue strength. Deadlifts, you can go every other week without much of a penalty. I would probably do squats and then maybe some shruggies if you're currently doing deadlifts, and then move on to 1 or 2 exercises of 1 or 2 sets for the other major body parts, and then do my legs and hammies. Carl, how's it going, Carl? Thanks for tuning in. Big Mark, how's it going, Mark? Thanks for tuning in. Adonis Slim. Is 100 kg to 110 kg on bench a reasonable goal? So 10 kg is about 22 pounds, give or take. That's about 44 pounds in 3 months. It's possible, but that's a lot of, no, wait, 10 kg would be 22. Sorry, I read that as 20. So, yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable goal. 22 pounds, 10 kg. Depending on the individual, you might fall a little bit short. I mean, that's a really good rate, especially when you're an intermediate lifter. So I would set that goal, but as long as you're getting like 5 to 7.5 consistently every 3 months, you're in a pretty good place. Even if you only get 5 kgs on the bench every 3 months, that's still 20 kgs in a year. or over 50 pounds, whatever it shakes out to be. Over the course of 2 or 3 years, you're going to add a lot of weight to your bench, and you're going to end up way up on these scales. So just don't be frustrated. Don't be frustrated. Benefits of a slingshot. It can give you some shoulder support if you're having any current shoulder issues. If you have any like shoulder joint issues or any minor shoulder stress, having a bench press slingshot device around can provide some shoulder support. So it's a good tool to have during those seasons. It works your lockout. It works, it overloads you, and it forces you to stay tight. And like I mentioned, it helps protect the joints a little. It helps protect the shoulders a little bit. So not a bad tool to have. I ran it for a long, long time. Relied on it for a long, long time. I don't use it much these days. I still feel the same, on my bench. So it's a really good tool if you're serious about benching. Have you watched the Paris Olympics? We watched a little bit of it. If so, what brought you the most attention? One of the biggest surprises was the Uzbekistan sweep in martial arts. I didn't get to watch any of that. I'm going to kind of tune in and see if I can watch some of the martial arts. There was just so much on. And when I got to the evening, I love watching the rugby sevens. I didn't get to watch any of the soccer. I watched some 3-on-3 basketball. We watched a little bit of track and field, a little bit of gymnastics. I didn't get to see that. I didn't get to see any of the martial arts really. And of course, we watched the Australian breakdancing team, right? But no, I'll check it out. There's a lot I need to get caught up on. I'm going to skip forward. Do you ever get tired of all this coaching and training talk? No, no, not at all, man. I get to do what I love for a living. I feel blessed every day. I look forward to getting up. This is what I love to do. This is absolutely what I love to do. I get up, I talk to Team Massive. I get to speak with everyone. No, if anything, it's like I want more questions. I want more interaction. I want to find a way to reach more people. I really believe in what I'm teaching, right? I didn't get on this initially I just started teaching lifting crap out of my basement, but it has developed into a career. It has given me a small business, and I absolutely love it. I don't dread this at all. What I dread is when waking up and not having questions, right? I'm not being able to help people. I think I have a very important message, and I try to teach people freedom in lifting, how to view things, how to view training over the last 70 years and not be handcuffed by all this nonsense or influence stuff like you better not do hammer curls or you'll die. You better not do upright rows or you'll die, right? All this bullshit that exists in the industry. I love lifting. I'm going to be doing this until I can no longer speak. So not realize another question about coaching. Is there ever any face-to-face or verbal communication? Once somebody signs up, we set up a time to talk, and we talk on the phone and set up everything. And then if somebody ever wants to do another phone call at any time, they absolutely can. All right, where are we at? We did that one. Here we go. Cosmic Bear approaching 19 to 20% body fat on a bulk. Stronger than ever. I had set strength goals and currently 10 to 15 pounds away from reaching goals on the big three. Any issues? No. Your body fat percentage is pretty reasonable. You're not Fatzilla, right? You're just kind of in the 18%. When you're at 18%, you don't really have movie fat. You don't really have love handle fat. You don't really have lower back fat. You don't really have lower belly fat. You're not exactly ripple-dippled, right? You're not exactly ripped. but you're not looking fluffy either. 19 to 20%, you're just a hair over that. 22 to 24% is probably where you have to start looking in the mirror and saying, if I get any more fluffier than this, I might be in trouble. So, excuse me. I would probably encourage you to bulk the rest of the year. We got 4 months, basically the rest of the year, bulk 8, 9, 10 pounds. And then after that, maybe do a quick cut. I wouldn't cut this time of year if you can avoid it. Shelly, 20 on the 5, 10, 10, 20. Yes, and that was a grinder. Good. But grinders turn into not grinders, so well done. Shelly is a client of mine. She's doing the 5, 10, 10, 20, and I'm super happy to hear that. Michael, cheers from Berlin. Thanks for tuning in. Ernie said Johnny Spinkter, right? Yeah, Johnny Spinkter. Hey, Norris. I've been on Norris's podcast. We connected on Instagram and Facebook. Norris is a dedicated lifter, a power lifter as well. And good to see you, my friend. Michael, I can strongly recommend the coach. Thank you, Michael. Currently on my 2nd month, and it's worth every single penny and much more than that. Thank you. That means a lot to me. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you. Big Alonzo Mourning. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Alonzo Murray. Does Paul Revelia look like he even lifts with clothes on? He's not somebody I've ever met. I've met so many people in person. And I can't even mentally visualize what he looks like. Let me take a peeky, weeky, wookie, woo. Paul just kind of looks like the average natural body. I don't even know his weight, I mean, we respect the iron, so we respect the effort. Let's pull up a picture of Paul. Share screen. There we go. There's Paul. That's obviously in a sliced and diced stage. Arms look, if I had to guess, it's hard to tell sometimes from pictures, but arms look probably like 16 and a half. He's shredded up. I don't know how Paul trains. I'd be curious. Anybody have a link to his training? I want to see if I can find his program. I want to figure out if I can see how he trains. I don't know. Maybe if you guys have any idea, I don't know. I'd be curious to see how he trains, but I don't know anything about the guy. He looks good. A lot of guys, I'll tell you this, a lot of naturals, even the guys you watch that look big, you can tell, unless they're like near their natural potential, a lot of them, if they're in shredded condition, you can't really immediately tell that they have muscle mass because they're not mass monsters. And that's not a dig. That's just kind of the way it can be in natural lifting. So I've seen it before. Meaning I've seen guys that were 16 and a half inch arm natural lifters lean like that, and in clothes you can't really tell because they're so reduced body fat wise that, Good morning, Steve. Do you think you should bulk the majority of your teens because you can grow more muscle? Look, in this day and age, we got a lot to process. We have a lot of teens that have a lot of access to fast food and junk food, and it can really fatten them up to a level where they can be unhealthy. Teens, we need to make sure, first and foremost, they learn how to eat properly. We need to equip them for success for the rest of their life. We want them to eat to satiety, right? We don't want them to get involved with eating disorders. We don't want them focusing on weighing food. This is just my opinion. We want them to learn how to eat normally, 80-20, mostly good, a little bit of fun, eating to fullness. And I wouldn't specifically do any bulks because that would imply we might have to do cuts. So I'm not a big fan of that. Once you get 18, 19, you're in college, you can start doing bulking, cutting cycles. Until then, let's just build up the base, if that makes sense. Ice Cold Tristan 2.0. We're waiting for 2.0A to be released. Big, hairy, ugly dude. I've seen a 7-foot Olympic bar online. That's about $110, and its max weight is 500 pounds. There are better barbells, but I've had barbells like this. I've had cheapy weepies, and they're good to use on like bench or squats, especially if you're not like like a Godzilla lifter. And I don't mean any disrespect by that, but a lot of times when I've had home gym equipment and I've shown it, let's be honest here. Like, when I first got in this industry, I didn't have a lot of money. I was working as a machinist, and I didn't have a lot of extra spending cash. And I'm not going to be shy about letting you know that. I had 2 kids. I was a family man working as a machinist. So I bought the barbell that would hold the weight, right? I didn't, and I would show my equipment. They'd be like, there are better racks out there than that. Like, yeah, there are better racks out there like that. And unless you want to buy me one, this is what I'm going to use. The thing I found with mediocre equipment is that it all lasted me just fine. No bar got damaged. No rack got damaged. Nothing got damaged. And it lasted me as long as I needed it to last. So if you're going to get into things where you're deadlifting about 500 pounds, squatting really heavy weight, want to drop that on rack pulls, then you probably need a 1,000-pound rated bar. That'll serve you just fine. And you know what? Even if you only get 5 years out of it and it goes south, you got your mileage out of it, right? Sebastian, good to see you, my friend. I must confess, mozzarella and honey is my tub of ice cream. I like my cheese as well. I just try to use a reasonable minimal amount. As long as you're not getting fat, you're doing good. Big Alonzo, what's going on? We got another question from Alonzo Murray. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, full body. Wednesday, Friday, arms. Does this work? I'd have to see the program because the devil is in the details. You don't want biceps and triceps fatigue really going into back or pressing work. So I would probably tell you to do, this is a tough one because we have to restructure this. I would rather see you do full body, arms, full body. I'd rather see you do this. Full body. I'm just going to use days of the week as an example. You can adjust as needed. It's just an example. Maybe I'll do this in a Google Doc real quick so you guys can visualize this instead of me. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to pull up a blank Google Doc and we'll just hammer this out for shenanigans, for fun. Okay, so we can actually see what we're doing here. Present. I'm going to show you how I would do it. I don't think having 2 arm days is the best use of your time. So I'm going to use just an example here. Monday, we do full body A. Let me bring this up a little bit. I'm very anal about my font, so I have to use Roboto. And I have to use 14. If not, I freak out. Just a joke. Tuesday, I would do the old offerooski. Okay. If we can learn how to spell Tuesday. Now, I'm going to show you a couple ways to do it. Wednesday, you can do full body B. And we're typing on the fly here, so we're going to make 800 mistakes. Thursday, we'll do the old armorooskies. Okay. So we got to make everything look pretty. Friday, hey, it's payday. It's beer day. We are going to rest day. So we're going to rest on Friday, off. Well, I might as well make it uniform here, off. See what we're doing here? On Saturday, we're going to do another full body. And then on Sunday, we're going to rest. That's one way of doing things. Now, I will show you the other way of doing things that I would recommend. So we'll do what they call in the old computer industry copy and pasting. We're going to drop that, and we're going to move that. We're going to take that. We're going to move that, and then we're going to do our junk arm day. This is how I typically do it. You don't need 2 arm days. I'm saying this politely, but when I see 2 arm days in a week, I'm seeing somebody that's trying to do more for the sake of doing more and thinks that more is better. More is not going to be better. If you need more than 1 arm day, you're probably not training hard enough, or you're lacking a little bit of patience. And I mean that with complete respect. My advice for you would relax, walk away. 1 arm day is fine. You can get in some arm work on A, B, and C, maybe just 1 exercise each for biceps and triceps. And then you have all of Saturday to get in all the arm work you want. But you want your biceps and triceps rested for your pressing and your pulling. If not, you've become so arm anal, so arm focused, that it's going to impact slightly your pressing and your pulling. You're so focused on arms that you're going to start to impact your pressing and pulling, which are the 70 to 75 to 80% of your arm builders in general. Does that make sense? Like, we want isolation work for our arms. We want extra work for our arms. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can't chop down the tree and hope to save the branch, right? You're not going to get big arms if you don't have big ass presses and pulls. If you don't you're not going to have those really impressive arms. You got to get the bench up. You got to get the overheads up. You got to get the rows up. And you need to be fresh headed into those. So I hope that helps a lot. Should you still sleep? Should you still sleep? Days with no sleep, should you train? It really depends on how you feel. Low no sleep days. Some days I've trained, some days I haven't. Just understand this. The winner over a long period of time is consistency, a reasonable consistency. Adding in an extra rest day here or there over a period of 10 years isn't going to make any difference. It's the guys that take 3 or 4 months off each year from training that have the issues, or guys that don't use progressive overload, etc. Does that make sense? What are your thoughts on 0-calorie energy drinks? Absolutely. If there was any harm, I'd be dead right now. Balance. Life is all about balance. And I try not to eat things with 452 ingredients, right? Too much. Natural flavors, Panax, ginseng flavor, sodium benzoate, calcium papufinate, whatever. I'm just being silly. My general rule is, when you see, I want to reduce the overall impact of this during the week. So I want to have a minimal number of foods that have all this crap added, right? If 90% of your foods don't have that crap and you're getting in a little bit of crap, I consider that to be okay, right? That's just my opinion, my personal opinion. All right, we went through that one. Sorry, sometimes they double post. Leg days. I have squats, RDLs, hack squats, leg extensions, leg curls. Should I remove hack squats and add lunges? No. Let me explain. That's a good program. If you want to add in lunges, what I would do is the next week, you do squats, RDLs, lunges, leg extensions, leg curls. So you do an A-B split in that hack squat, leg extension, hack squat, lunge position. That's the best way to do it. You are working in, whenever I want to work in extra exercises that I enjoy, not like I'm paranoid, like I have to add them in or I'm going to die or I'm not going to see gains. If you want to add in an exercise, do an A-B split. Let's say you do squats and RDLs and you decide, I want to do glute ham raises as well. You could split RDLs one week, glute ham raises the next. You can do A-B splits. That's the best way to do things. I have a back day, with deadlifts. Should I still do RDLs on leg day? You certainly can. A lot of my clients do that. If you have any lower back stress, it's probably from form on one or the other lift. We probably need to comb through that form. You can do that on Team Massive on Discord, or you can DM me your form. If it's not working out for you, then we adjust, all right? We don't always know. So the devil's going to be in the details, what's taking place in the gym. And if it's not working, we'll just change it. Can you do the same program forever? There's no urgent need to change exercises. The exercises you're doing now, 80% of them, you're going to be using the same exercises 30 years from now. So there's no urgent need to change exercises. But we don't think about keeping the same program. We think about evolving the program based on needs. Maybe you get tired of penalty rows mentally for a year and you need a break and want to do T-bar rows. That's fine. Don't box yourself in. You just need to get away from the thought that you need to keep using the same exercises. You can't make progress. That's toxic bullshit. That's absolute nonsense. That's the worst of the worst bullshit in this industry. It absolutely is. So there's no urgent need to change exercises. You can continue to use the same exercises as long as you enjoy them and you're finding value in them. But you don't need to change exercises to stimulate or reignite gains. Is there any reason to keep reps in reserve? I hate the concept. I'm not saying it can't be useful in the proper programming structure. It could be. Anything could be. It's just a tool. But I'm not in the guessing game. I'm not in a guessing game, right? I want a defined progression approach. Most people are far away from guessing their true near failure level as it is. And then we're going to start guessing. What is the value of leaving all sets 3, 4, 2 reps away from advancing? What's the value in that? What are we trying to achieve? Any advice for lifting dealing with a labrum tear? So when it comes to dealing with any injury, and this is a labral tear can be in the, I wanted to verify this, that there are only a couple areas, the hip or the shoulder. I don't know if you mean a shoulder. I'm assuming you mean like a shoulder. You have to focus on what you can do rather than what you can't do. So you have to find exercises you can safely do and you work them. Once you have surgery or whatever you're doing, when you come back, you need to go slow with whatever you can do. There's really nothing more to it than that. You can only do what you can do. So you want to put in a reasonable degree of exercises, whatever you can do without aggravating things. When you are advanced, do you still train the same way? Advanced lifters have been training for many, many years, and how they train is completely up to them. Advanced lifters don't have much mass and strength left to build. So do you want to train to the limit on every set when you're pretty strong? Generally not. It's a good way to beat up the body, but there's no rules here, right? An advanced lifter starts out on day one and they train and they build mass and they evolve things over the years. It's very easy to sustain mass. So how an advanced lifter trains is going to be dependent on their goals. How desperately they want to squeak out the last 1 or 2 pounds of muscle or 10 to 15 pounds on bench. But it's all personal evolution. Big Jordan Myers. What vegetables should I eat daily to cover my vitamin bases? Your biggest contributor to micronutrient content is going to be meat, animal-based. I'm not saying plant-based don't have nutrients because I'm not an idiot, so don't hear me incorrectly. But the most nutrient-dense foods are the meat-based, okay? So we want to focus on animal-based first and foremost as our priority. And from there, what I recommend is picking out 5 plant-based sources you like to eat each week to add to that animal-based mix. What do you like to eat? I like to eat jalapenos. I like to eat onions. I like to eat watermelon. Try to pick out something that's a little bit, number one, what you like, with a little bit of diversity. We're not trying to create rules and structures here, but I like to get in at least a minimum. I like to set the table with a minimum number of plant-based choices. It could be spinach, it could be onions, it could be jalapenos, it could be watermelon, and it could be a bonus one like tomatoes. I don't think of things in terms of vegetables. I think in things in terms of plant-based, right? Because a tomato is a fruit, basically. So don't think in terms of plant-based or vegetables. Think in terms of adding plant-based options in each week, and make those choices whatever you like. I don't care what they are. Black beans, whatever. Anything that comes from the earth. That's a grain, a potato or a grain. The grains included potatoes, corn. Potatoes aren't a grain, but I mean like corn, rice, adding tubers in like potatoes, whatever. Just eat the plant-based choices you want, the non-animal-based choices. But try to get a reasonable variety, minimum each week. I say try to plug in 5 choices, and then if you can have a little bit more, you're good to go. At what point should you switch your program? You don't switch to an advanced program. You evolve to an advanced program over time. Advanced lifters train a specific way because they've evolved their training in the last 20 years. They don't just switch to an advanced program. Does that make sense? That's a myth. Like they don't wake up one day and say, I'm ready for an advanced program. They start on day one, and then everything they do, they learn in the gym what they like, what they don't like, what's working, what's not working. And then they wake up as an advanced lifter with an advanced program. Does that make sense? Don't focus on changing programs. Focus on learning and evolving your program based on needs. This is one thing I teach from my Massive Iron Pillars of Success. You can find it on my new book at Super Living Today, my book called Massive Omnibus, my book series. And you can head over to superlivingtoday.com, search Omnibus. On my social media, the last week I've been giving away my Massive Pillars of Success. You can still go over there and get that if you want to learn more about this. Where are we at? Today I've hit a 1 rep max of 145 on standing OHP. Nice work. 135 is kind of the minimum solid standard. Good work. Those are really good strength standards. They're really good strength accomplishments. Sorry. So you should be proud of both of those. Are you familiar with Dr. Scott Stevenson's? Never heard of him. Never heard of him. No, sir. How can you tell if you're torso dominant? I'm going to tell you this. You don't need to worry about any of this stuff. And I mean this politely, but what's the value in worrying about this stuff? Am I torso dominant? To what percentage? To what degree? You just do a reasonable number of exercises each week for every muscle group. And that's all you need to do. You guys don't need to worry about anything else. If you want to add it, how do you know if you need to add in more arm work? If you want to add in more arm work, right? If you're training hard and you're adding mass and you're nailing your bulking and cutting, and maybe you want to do an arm specialization period, learn a little bit, right? There's no formula. There's no, I need to know if I'm 47% torso dominant or whatever. You just evolve things based on what's happening in the gym and personal preference. Does that make sense? Well, the one thing I try to teach is relax, guys. Relax. It's okay to play. It's okay to change things. It's okay to add things. As long as you're recovering, you can add extra arm. As long as your pressing and pulling work is aggressive and not injurious, right? So the one thing I want you guys to relax, don't worry about rules. Don't worry about these boxes or constraining structures or any of this stuff. Just do what you want to do as long as it's reasonable. I'm about 5'9", 5'10". My goal has always been to get under 190. Absolutely. At 200 pounds, if you were 15% body fat, your lean body mass would be around 170. 190 would be even lower. So that's very, very reasonable for your height. Very reasonable. It might take 3-4 years of training to get your mass up the speed, but 2-3, it's hard to say. But yeah, that's a very reasonable goal. No, this is arbitrary, and what's the point? Right? This is what I'm trying to teach everybody from getting away from, is all this arbitrary overcomplication nonsense. There's no need to cycle through volume. You're not going to magically expedite gains cycling through volume, and anybody teaching you this is full of crap. Over the long run, you start with a reasonable amount of volume, and you try to focus on training hard, and you evolve your programming based on needs, you're going to be fine. There's no benefit of cycling through volume. The only time you'll ever need to cycle through volume is maybe when you're a super advanced lifter and you want to cycle in and do more intense work, maybe every third week. Do you ever get, no, we handled that one. If I had 1 day a week to train, then I'd focus on variations of the 6 big lifts. I would disagree, because you're not doing any dumbbell or machine work. And if you're focused on hypertrophy, yeah, barbell is good, but this is kind of cult of barbell stuff. I would definitely work in some dumbbell and machine work, because it requires fewer warm-up sets in general. Can be just as impactful. There's nothing wrong with these lifts, but you generally should consider dumbbells and machines. The rep range, that's so super arbitrary. And I mean no disrespect, but working everything in the 5 to 8 rep range, that sends off a red flag, a red alert. It's super arbitrary. Why are we working so low? Right? Because somewhere along the line, somebody told you that's magic. Use conventional rep ranges. That's very intense work. I'm not going to work up to 5 to 8 rep sets and all of this. That's very intense. That's usually going to require more warm-up sets. Things like dips and chins and overhead presses, especially RDLs. Super heavy work on RDLs, that's a no-no. Like, you don't want to go super intense in RDLs. That's a lift you very much have to moderate. And I'm saying this politely, but this is very generic and poorly constructed advice. And I mean that with respect. There's so much nuance here that I would completely destroy and change this, because there's too much dogma built in here, right? We have the barbells and the low rep work, and there's a lot of blind spots in this. We're leaving out, we're working in too many warm-up sets. We're arbitrarily going too heavy on everything. This is going to be a hell day, and it really doesn't it doesn't have much variation. It's just stapled to low reps and barbells and a lot of warm-up sets and a lot of joint stress. I'm not a fan of that at all. I'm currently running the torso limb split Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Any advice on increasing side and rear delt work? Side delt work is going to be your overhead presses. So you want to get a barbell and a dumbbell variation in each week. Doesn't matter. I do seated pin press. I start here from the pin on the first rep, push up, and then I don't drop it to the pin. after the first rep. You want to do a barbell overhead variation, seated, standing. You want to do a dumbbell overhead variation, seated, or, dumbbell overhead press, Arnold press, whatever you want. Those would be the two I would work on. I would start with on your side delts. Then if you could, I'd add in a machine shoulder press and probably a side lateral raise. Those are the 4 exercises I start with. Rear delts are going to be 90% of your rowing movements, your big rowers, like your seated cable rows, your barbell rows, your pendlay rows, etc. There's this disconnect in lifting, right? Lifters have been programmed wrongly by the influencers to think that rear delt work has to be like face pulls and bent over flies. Here is the action of a face pull, okay? Basically, elbows are moving back. Wherever you're pulling, it doesn't matter. Your elbows are moving back. This is the action of a row. Elbows are moving back. The rear delts are heavily involved with rows, and don't ever forget that. Just like pressing will help overdevelop your front delts, rowing will help nicely develop your rear delts. And then you can add in your rear delt work. You can add in an extra rear delt exercise if you want. Rear delt swings, bent over flies, etc. But the cornerstone of your rear delt work is always going to be rows and pulls. Does that make sense? I'm interested in your yearly coaching special. I have a yearly coaching special of $699 that will be available until $699 for a year until September 10th. So it's about 11 or 12 days away. And then I'll be raising that to $899 for a year. That's a complete year of coaching. $899 will still be a really good deal, but $699 is still available. So if anybody is interested, you can go over to my website, superlivingtoday.com, and just search $699. It'll come up. Anyway, where were you at? I'm unsure whether to just go with the 3 months since I want to test the waters. If you've never coached before, always save money, right? Always go with the lower initial outline. I'm not here to pressure anybody. I don't want anybody to overextend their bounds and sign up for coaching when they're not sure because they've never coached before. I will tell you, though, I'm the coach of the year in 2023. I'm the coach of the year for a reason. I had over 89,000 messages, I believe, with my clients last year. I want communication. I'm not a check-in once a week guy. I have no disrespect to anybody that does that. But I am with my clients every single day. We focus on form. We focus on evolving our programming. We focus on building a relationship. I coach for a living. I'm not one of these guys that coaches 5 or 10 people on the side. So, one thing I never want people to do is spend money when they're not certain. Never spend money when you're not certain, right? There's no harm in getting to know how things work. I have most of my clients that signed on for a year initially started out with recurrings, and then they realized after a month or 2 months, hey, I like this, I'm going to sign up for a year. So that would probably be your best way to go. And I just wanted to say thank you for always doing these lives, answering questions. Thank you. I appreciate your questions, and I appreciate your interest on coaching. If you have any more questions, don't hesitate to let me know. One thing that has happened for me is because I was given the exposure as being the coach of the year, I have a lot of inquiries, right? And that's a blessing. But I only have so many spots. And when a spot does open up, like someone goes in the military or someone's getting married or having a surgery and they'll be out for a year, like I've had people that have babies and they want to take a break for coaching for 6 months, or people just graduate. I just had a female, Marina, a photographer, who's with me over a year. Looks amazing. She's very happy with where she's at and just kind of graduating. She's just in a good place. So if you have RDLs on leg day, would it make sense to remove deadlifts? No. They're not. RDLs don't hit the upper back. They're more of a lower back and hamstring and hip exercise and glute exercise. The deadlift is more of an upper back slanted or trap or yoke slanted exercise. So they're kind of, even though they're called a deadlift, a lot of people in the industry equate them as kind of a similar lift, but they're not really. They work different body parts, different areas. If you don't want a deadlift, that's fine. Then you can add in a heavy row. That would be perfectly fine. But I just want to set RDLs out of the equation here because the deadlift is more upper back. So if you want to take that out and put in a row, you would be you would be thinking correctly. Does that make sense? What's going on, Joshua? Team Massive. What does it mean if I feel tension in my lower pecs off the ground part? Nothing. It means absolutely nothing. You're normal. When I'm deadlifting, I feel pec stress as well. It's a compound movement. You're going to have every muscle in the human body doing things. When I deadlift, I can feel my chest rippling at times. Doesn't mean nothing. Nothing to worry about. Just means you're human, normal. I saw you post a question earlier this week about people, what muscle groups never get sore. For me, it's side delts. So side delts are very difficult for me to get sore. No, it has nothing to do with training effectiveness. Nothing at all. Let me explain something to you guys, okay? And this is something I've talked about over and over again. And I really believe one day science will catch up to what I've been teaching. Because what I've been teaching is based on physiology. Okay, so hear me out. The connective tissue in the fascia has 9 times more sensory neurons than muscle tissue. So every muscle has connective tissue. It has a fascia. It has this stuff that holds the muscles together. That stuff has 9 times more sensory neurons. Okay, so because of this, it is my belief that a vast percentage of the soreness and stiffness and pain you feel is not muscular at all. It is the sensory neuron sensitivity from the fascia and connective tissue. Okay? And this, I'm going to be one of the only people that you'll ever hear talking about this. I don't know why. It's just physiology. You can search it. But every muscle has a different fascia and connective tissue makeup. The fascia and connective tissue in your chest is different than the fascia and connective tissue of your shoulders. It is my opinion, based on this analysis and physiological reality, that some muscle groups don't get as sore because the fascia and connective tissue makeup is completely different in nature. It has nothing to do with hard training. I rarely get my upper back sore, even though I beat the living crap out of it. I rarely get delt soreness, even though I beat the living crap out of it. I always get a reasonable but slight degree of chest soreness. Obviously, when you're a beginner, you're going to be more sensitive to soreness. I tend to get more leg soreness and hamstring soreness. Soreness is not equatable to hard training. It can be to varying degrees at varying levels of experience and hard training, but it's nothing you ever need to worry about. You worry about hard training, reasonable volume, nailing your bulking, and you'll be fine. Don't worry about soreness. If soreness is there, we will take it. Does this make sense? I keep hearing online that when people program in an arm day where they only did biceps, triceps, and claim that their arms well, this is a lot of hyperbole, right? We have to be careful. Here's what I mean. We have to be careful with A equals B, right? I added arm work and then my arms blew up. Well, probably, maybe you were under training your arms. It's like the old hard gainer programs from Stuart McRobert. I switched to hard gainer program and my size blew up. Therefore, hard gainer is the magic. I switched to an arm day and my arms blew up. Therefore, arm day is the magic. No, this is incomplete. We have to always look at things from a weekly volume standpoint. So it doesn't matter how you slice and dice things. You slice and dice things over the course of a week where it makes sense to you. Many times, especially in the last 15 years, you've seen people not working their arms hard enough because a lot of your effort goes into the major compound movements. And we almost got away from working our arms hard enough. This is a minimalism that I've preached against for quite a while. So a lot of these guys probably weren't working their arms hard enough. And that's not a criticism. They're probably really focusing on their major compounds, but if their arms are blowing up, there was a deficiency or they really increased the intensity. Does that make sense? When somebody blows up on a new program, many times there is a chance that the old program was poop. Okay. Wasn't as hard or wasn't as focused or well-rounded as it could have been. So whatever the case is, we don't want to generalize. What we want to do is look at a weekly volume. What are we doing weekly for every body part? And then we want to focus on hard training. Does that make sense? If you can add in extra arm work, go right ahead. There's nothing wrong with it. But we still want to create a solid, sustainable structure. How do you balance client preference with massive iron philosophy? I know you're a fan of overhead pressing. If a client doesn't want to do overhead pressing, I'm going to tell them they're probably not going to build pretty big side delts. I don't get people that really like that. That's the honest truth. Like, if somebody thinks they can build their delts on side delts alone, I'm going to tell them I'm probably not the coach for them, because they're living in a fairy tale world, right? And I mean no disrespect by that, but there are people that live in fairy tale worlds, right? I want to build big legs from running. Okay, Bob. You do you. I don't waste my time on people that live in a land of fairy tales and hobbits and dragons and magical swords and +5 cloaks of leg gains, right? I mean, no disrespect, but I don't have time for people that don't want to be coached. There are things that work and there are things that don't work, right? You can't build up big side delts with only side lateral raises. No one in the history of lifting has done that. Side lateral raises have a limited progression opportunity. I do them. I did them yesterday. They're my final lift. There's nothing wrong with them. But if someone doesn't want to do convention, then I'm probably not the coach for them. If they want to do something radical or wacky, then I generally don't feel they're ready for coaching, because they have a belief in their head that I can build big legs from running, or I can build big side delts from not doing any overhead pressing. Yeah, you can not build big side delts from not doing any overhead pressing. And you can build overdeveloped shoulder, or you can develop a shoulder girdle imbalance. So I don't have that as a case generally. I don't coach anybody. Most people that come to me know what my beliefs are. My beliefs are conventions. So I have had a couple people over the years that wanted to program themselves. Like, I had somebody come to me that wanted coaching but wanted to do Wendler's 5-3-1. I don't coach Wendler's 5-3-1. I don't have anything against Wendler's 5-3-1. I am not Jim Wendler, right? There's nothing wrong with Wendler's coaching, nothing wrong with Wendler's system. But I do not coach Wendler's system. I do not coach starting strength. Starting strength does not coach massive iron, right? Different flavors of ice cream. You do you. But if somebody doesn't like my style, then I don't want to coach them. No hard feelings. Because they're working against me rather than coming to me for help. Over the years, I've switched from free weight muscle building. And I'm just trying to see if there's I'm going to assume to more machines and etc. I would need to know a bigger picture. I'm not sure where that was going. I'm not sure. So maybe you can let me know if there's anything we missed. How do I know if I'm exited the novice stage? Don't worry about this stuff, my friend. Don't worry about this stuff. It adds no value to your life. Focus on the basics: hard training, progressive overload, a reasonable selection of exercises, exercise form. A novice is somebody just starting out. If you're working on your exercise form and you're building strength and you've been training over a couple months, you're not a novice anymore. But don't worry about titles, guys. Don't worry about titles. A high pull, generally, I'd like to look at them from the side or the front. Doesn't matter too much. I can see all I need to know. Big Joe B, what's your opinion on machine curls? I have nothing wrong with them. Cable curls, machine curls. As long as the exercise feels good for you, right? You get a good feeling from it, you're good to go. I wouldn't do all machine curls. I mean, when we're looking at biceps training, I would have a reasonable variety. Dumbbell, easy bar, maybe a machine curl, whatever. Like lean beef, absolutely. Beef is a really good nutrient source, as are nuts. Absolutely. What's your limit for JM press? Tough to master. This is kind of an experimental lift where a lot of my clients have been doing it the last 6 to 8 months. I got mine up to 130, 155. I haven't really seen anybody get beyond 135, 155. I don't really want to worry about a strength standard on JM press. We want to worry about feeling. It's kind of a tweener in between a close grip bench and a skull crusher. But I would say once you get above 100, you're in a pretty good place. What's going on? Hello. Glad to have you here. Big Joe B, what's the difference between training for strength, aka strongman? Well, those are two different things. Strongmen have to train for a strength base, just like everybody else. The biggest lifters are almost always, in every case, going to have the potential to be the strongest lifters. If you look at guys in the same weight class in powerlifting, the biggest lifters, the strongest lifters are almost always the biggest lifters. That's not opinion. That was a scientific study. Everybody has to build a strength base and a muscle base. In strongman, once you build the strength base and you want to try strongman, which is a sport, you have to train for the sport. And usually they have a strongman Saturday or Sunday where they do specific implement training. And there can be specific needs and demands on the body, trying to get a circus dumbbell into place, trying to do a yoke walk. Those are things your body has to get accustomed to doing. But you still train the same outside of your strength, your sport-specific implement training. Does that make sense? I'm running your 5, 10, 10, 20. Would that be all for the bench for that day? It depends on I'm benching 3 days currently and doing this on my third day. I'd have to know more about your plan. But you can, if you're doing like an upper posterior and you have another chest or bench slot that day, you could do something else. I would typically, you could do a dumbbell bench. I would not do 2 bench movements in the same day, especially on something like that. Meaning I wouldn't do 2 barbell bench movements on the same day, generally. Big Dan N, what did you think of the new Alien movie? No spoilers, please. I think I am very picky with movies. Me and my wife, I'm sorry, yes, I did. I just said beef and nuts have a lot of good nutrient content, so you're on the right track. What do you think of the new Alien movie? I'm very picky on movies. We watch a lot of movies. When I started Muscle and Brawn back in the day, I actually started a second site dedicated to movie reviewing and independent films. Muscle and Brawn took off, so I stopped that second site. But I'm a big fan of film. And I try to detach my love for the first 2 or 3 Alien movies from what this film was. With that said, this was a wonderful, not only movie, but a wonderful Alien movie. It fit right in with the first 2. The first 2 had this darkness, this grimness, this somber tone, this serious tone, this you're in a bubble, you're watching in this bubble kind of feel. And we got to Prometheus and things like that, which were good films, but they were bright and colorful and expansive. I was nervous about this movie because I thought we had a group of younger individuals, and it was going to be like a campy teen horror movie where all the young teens are wacky. Here's the jock, here's the dumb chick, the dumb sexy chick, all the stereotypes. It was nothing like that. The characters were interesting and not overdone. The movie was well constructed. Was it perfect? No, most movies aren't perfect, but it was a 90% all the way. Certainly must watch, whether you're a fan of the Alien series or not. There's no reason not to watch this film. It's one of the better films I've seen in the last year. Just certainly one of the top 10 films I've seen in the last year. Just an excellent experience. So many times we come to movies and there's so many distractions or bad acting or draggy plots or whatever, or they destroy something that was good. What they didn't do is take the original Alien movie and remake it. They had a lot of a new adventure, a new slant. So I absolutely loved it. I would definitely see it. I'm going to watch it 100 more times. That's what would you say is a good base for a 17-year-old? I mean, that's hard to say. There's a vast number of different levels of experience you can be at that age. There are guys I've seen that can bench 275. I think being able to bench 200 would be great. Squatting 275 and deadlifting 315 would be wonderful. I want to take a break from spending so much time in the gym. The good thing about having muscle mass is that it's easy to sustain. The worst thing you could do is not lift at all. You would eventually, like after a month, you'd start to deflate, lose some mass, lose some strength. Keeping your mass and strength is rather easy. You don't need much work. Having only 6 sets of training, though, a week is getting a little bit on the low end. You're getting a little bit low. The minimum I would advise would be 2 workouts of 45 minutes a week. I understand you don't want to spend a lot of time in the gym. But I'm just going to give you my honest opinion. I think you need 90 minutes in the gym a week to comfortably sustain a well-rounded physique. And this would probably be 25 sets total minimum. Mendo, thank you, sir. Doing the best I can. Got to hit arms with my best friend today, and life really don't get better than that. Have fun. Lifting with these people you love is my favorite thing to do. Have fun, man. I hope you guys have a blast. Just don't do anything to get injured, and you're all good. I also feel my pecs during stiff leg deadlifts. Absolutely normal. Remember, these are complex compound movements. You can feel, I get, on my bench press, I get lat pulls and strains and cramps all the time. All these complex movements are very intricate, and you feeling your chest on something like this is not abnormal, right? So don't worry about it at all. Nothing unusual. What muscle group did it take you the longest to build a good mind-muscle connection with? I think it has to be back, but not because it took me a long time, but because I was just moving the weight and not specifically focused on feeling the back. Does that make sense? What are some of the most stubborn muscles to grow? I don't know, other than calves, that we could really accurately say any are stubborn. I think there are some that are underworked by the average lifter, like back and shoulders. Maybe even to a degree triceps, because everyone tends to be so bicep focused, but they tend to under focus on the triceps. If you had to choose for upper back work, we don't do that in the massive iron world. When we come across an A-B statement, we choose both. If I had to choose, I'm just being real with you. If I had to choose, I'm doing both, my friend, every other week. You can do it every other week and alternate. Best for a muscle group is usually a quality combination of exercises. Does that make sense? Me, I'm not choosing between two exercises I like. I'm doing both, right? At least over a course of an A-B split. What rep range would you recommend for hypertrophy? Rep range has to be exercise specific. So before, when I was talking about the 5 to 8, we have to, it's okay to have some 5 to 8 exercises like bench or overheads or whatever. But when we start applying rep ranges to everything, we're losing fact that in the gym, the demands of every exercise is different. So I might like doing 6 reps on pendlay rows, but I might like doing 12 reps on seated cable rows. We always have to remember that there's no magic rep range. And when we push someone into a certain rep range, we're losing track that it's not about the rep range, it's about the progression. So as long as you're in a reasonable rep range that works for you on that exercise, you're fine. Big Johnny, what percentage of body weight should a lifter be able to lift with overhead? I don't do that. I don't base it on body weight. And I mean no disrespect. Excuse me. I usually look at like 70 to 80% of your bench press is a reasonable starting goal. Josh, agree 100%. I never did arm days, and arms were the fastest muscles to develop. If you're training hard, it's usually the guys that aren't training hard in a specific area that change, or a complete program that changed to a program that focuses on that, see the most expedited progress. And no worries at all. I didn't assume that, about overhead pressing. I was just speaking in general. Maybe I should add a barbell over. Maybe we got to turn that maybe into B. Right, let's be. Dumbbell shoulder press is a great exercise. If you did dumbbell shoulder press and you did a machine shoulder press or a Smith machine shoulder press, and then you added in like upright rows or side lateral raises, that would be a good foundation. I'm not trying to create rules. And, like if you don't do a barbell exercise, you can't grow your side delts. I'm just saying in a perfect world, I want to do a barbell, a dumbbell, a machine, that sort of thing. I didn't mean no overhead pressing at all. I more so was asking between reasonable preferences. For example, let's say someone wanted to do 1 to 2 variations rather than 3. As long as the big picture is reasonable for a specific muscle group, you're fine. Does that make sense? So it's always big picture. JM Press has been tearing up my Tricepticons. Glad to hear that, man. That kind of feedback helps me help you guys, so I'm really glad to hear that. When on a bulk, how do you stay in a small surplus when your activity ranges? I don't. 200 calorie surplus is pretty much skimming the cream. That's riding things pretty close. We have to look at our weight. We have to look at the scale weight. If I have up to an hour of exercise, I generally don't add any more calories. If I have a lot more exercise, you could add 250 to 300 or 400 more calories. It depends. I'd have to know a lot more. Like what's pushing those days really up in activity. If it's 30 more minutes of activity, I generally don't add a lot of calories. You could add 100 calories. Activity isn't really going to drive calories up a lot unless it's super intense, if that makes sense. How do you get huge upper back delts and traps? You follow my workout plans. Everything I do is, I'm not being facetious, but everything I do is structured to get you as big and as strong as possible from head to toe. M-Star. Yep, I did. Thank you, and I appreciate you being on. Did you watch Deadpool 3? No, I did not. I have not seen that yet. We'll put it on the to-watch list. Checked in on Trainerize today, down 2 pounds this week. Nice work. That's a good week. I know you don't typically program in overlapping supersets. If a client wanted to do them, I don't advocate supersetting non-related exercises. That's just conditioning work. So if a client wanted to do that and they were having fits about it because they had a favorite, I might let them do one as long as they're progressing. But generally, we don't do that type of work. I don't believe in that type of work. So no. If a muscle still feels a little sore or tired, is it time to train? It depends. If it's a little bit sore, you're fine, because soreness isn't always indicative of how the muscle is going to perform. We just have to be smart about it. Dark humor. How many languages can you understand and how many do you speak? I had 2 years of German in middle school. My family is Russian German. I had 3 years of Spanish. I lived in New Mexico, so I got to listen to a lot of Spanish. I took a semester of Chinese, and I know a little bit about the Chinese language and some structure, but not enough to listen and speak. I can listen when I hear people speaking Spanish. This might sound weird, but I understand better than I can speak, right? I've been around it for so long that I can understand Spanish pretty well. German, I'm not super proficient at German, but wer ist denn das zu drüben? Danke gut und dir prima, that sort of stuff. Fröhliche Weihnachten und ein glückliches neues Jahr. I know a little bit of German, enough to be mildly prolific and proficient. Not very good. My German probably sucked to any Germans listening. I don't use it a lot, but Spanish I can hear well. I understand what's going on pretty well. If I had to speak certain things, I'd have to look up words. But when I hear the words, I understand Spanish enough to, understand what's going on. When to change an exercise that you cannot progress on. If you're struggling with an exercise and you're not progressing and everything else is working well, take a mental break from it and just do something else. There's no need to stay stapled to it unless it's a very important exercise that maybe something else needs to look at. We need to look at something else as to why you're not progressing. All right, guys, 3 questions left. If you have any more questions, get them in now. If not, I'll be hopping off. Big Justin, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Injured my back. We didn't approve that. Just bending over. That's the way it goes. That's about 90% of my injuries. Rolling over in bed. I'm done for a week, right? What I recommend is doing your light warm-up sets. Never assume it's completely healed if your warm-up sets feel okay, but if you're doing your light warm-up sets and you're not sure, just do a deload of 20 to 30% and drop a set. Dark humor, why is it that people started believing that deadlifts and variations don't train the lats? We have to understand whenever we have statements like this, it's usually a fringe number of people. The deadlift is pulling you're getting a really intense static contraction or contraction on your lats. Your lats are experiencing a lot of tension. So to think that a compound lift that is trying to rip your arms off doesn't provide some tension on the lats is silly, right? To what degree did it contribute to my overall back and lat size? Certainly. To what degree? I don't know. That's why we focus on having a good quality grouping of exercises. But when these influencers or salaries are like, the deadlift does nothing for the back, that person's an idiot. And I mean that. That's a dumb statement, right? Like I've heard a lot of dumb statements, like deadlifts don't work the traps. Yeah, they do. I'm sorry to break the news. They do. This completely lacks common sense. I read in a physiological textbook. That's great. But we're not all idiots, right? And we have some personal experience too. So I don't want to beat this one on and on. I don't want to linger on this one, but a lot of this is nonsense. People are reaching for whatever reason, I don't know, whatever their personal bias is, trying to find a way not to do so. As long as you're using a quality selection of exercises, you're in a good place. Do you believe that the same routine should not be done multiple times a week? And I don't want to do the same routine once a week. You want to have a little bit of exercise variety. There's only good benefits from that. If you pick 5 or 6 exercises and do the same thing over and over and over again, you have no exercise variety. Now, overinflating the value of exercise variety is a pit. We don't want to stuff so many exercises in that we get ridiculous. But there is value in hitting a muscle group with different types and forms of exercises that have progressive overload in the mix. A dumbbell, a barbell, a body weight, a machine, whatever, in isolation. That makes sense. You can do leg presses until your legs fall off. But when you introduce hack squats, you realize they tax my legs in a different way. And when you introduce squats, you realize they tax my legs in a different way. So I could do one exercise 3 times a week, or I could do 3 exercises each 1 time a week. Which do you think is going to have a better overall, more well-rounded impact on the physique? Easy. And if you look at the history of bodybuilding, that's exactly what everybody does. No one's just building big legs using 1 exercise per body part per week for 10 years. Do you need, we'll stress that word, 2 times frequency? There's no better. Better is a unicorn. It doesn't exist. Better is hard work over a long period of time. You're going to have different seasons over 5 to 10 years of your training career. You're going to get sick. You're going to have off days. You're going to have rest days. You're going to have vacation days. There's no perfect frequency for 5 to 10 years. Don't get caught up in magic, trying to find the magic key to unlock because you're putting yourself in bondage. The magic is hard work over time. The pillars, the 10 massive pillars of success. Again, go over to my Instagram. You can get them for free on a couple recent posts. The magic, the pillars of success are the magic. Consistency over time. There's no 2 times a week versus 1.5 per week. One's going to give you gains up to here, and one's just going to give you gains like this. That's not reality. That's not the way it works. That's utter patent nonsense. Got my bench up to 400. Well done. But haven't really used a program. Do you think your new bench specialization? Well, you've used some form of a structure. Either that or you've had to use some form of a structure, right? You have to kind of know what you're doing. Either that or you're one of the freakiest freaks that's taking an abusive amount of drugs. So there has to be some kind of pillars in place. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way at all. But structure is only going to benefit you, right? So yeah, I would try something. I made a video yesterday about building strength once you're strong. You have to start trying things and you have to give them a chance so you can start to learn what's working, what isn't. Does that make sense? Have there been clients who dropped out and just ended up wondering what is any coach is going to have people that sign up that aren't ready for hard training. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful way. Some people just sign up because they were drunk on a Friday night and watched your video at 2:30 in the morning. And then they sign up on Saturday and then come Monday and they do the workout and they're like, shit. So you're always going to get people like that. I've been doing this so long. What makes me happy, I work with clients. My average client stays on longer than a year. And I've had some on for 8 years now. And I get a lot of clients that take mini breaks to go do things in life, go in the military, go have a baby, and then they come back. That's what's most satisfying for me. Can you name some of your favorite upper back trap exercises? Pendley rows, dumbbell rows, seated cable rows, lat pull downs, pull-ups, T-bar rows, chest supported rows, Meadows rows, power shrugs, massive shrugs. If you haven't heard of the massive shrug variation, give those a try. The teardrop muscle in the leg, what exercises work them best? Everybody's a little bit different in the degree of where an exercise hits you. I would say if you start to go super wide squat, you're going to reduce any possible focus on the inner teardrop. So we need a reasonable squat stance, and then we need a reasonable battery of exercises to back that up, whether it's pendulum squat, leg press, hack squat. Certainly I would add in the leg extension. I can place my hands on that inner teardrop and feel that working. So when you guys do leg extensions, I would give that a try. All right, last question, guys. When someone like Alec Leonidas is able to bench 405, is the reason due to special program? It's everything I teach. What top tier level you can get to, whether it's 380, 405, 450, whatever, that's all top tier. Okay, that's top shelf. What degree of top shelf is going to be genetics and luck and how lucky you've been able to avoid injuries, all that kind of stuff. Too many variables. So if someone is saying, I can only bench 380, he can bench 405, someone else bench 420, that little bit of variance in the top shelf is just going to be luck, genetics, injury history, whatever. The commonality between guys like myself and Alex and Bald Omni-Man and Jeffrey Verity Schofield and Basement Bodybuilding is that when you train with them, they're fucking next level for a long period of time. Hard training. If you do not know what hard training is, you watch these people train. It's not the exercises specifically. It's not the rep ranges specifically. It's the bigger picture, the art. When you watch them, you're like watching something special. There is a laser focus. There is a huge degree of intensity. There are unquantifiable things going on in time and space and movement that teach you things you didn't even know could be learned, right? When you see that person in the gym that has the mass and there's something different or special about them, they're absolutely crushing things in a weird and unique level with a focus that you've not seen before and an intensity that you've not seen before. That's what's driving the bus here. And usually this individual, Alex, myself, Bald, GVS, all these guys, they're matching that with the dinner plate. It's passion, and they're crushing their nutrition, and they're crushing their training in a way when you watch it, you learn about the art of training. Does that make sense? Realistically, how long would it take? There's no way to say for certain. It could take you 5 years. It could take you never years. It could take you a year. There's nothing I can say that would. It could take someone 6 months. It could take someone never. That road right there is really where a lot of people never get to 4 or 5 squat, despite what you see on the worldwide inner tube. So I wish I could give you a better answer than that, but that's the honest answer. All right, guys, I'm going to hang around for a couple minutes, see if any more questions come in. If not, I just want to encourage you guys to please, I would love to connect with you on the Instagram. Please head over to @BenTheBarman. Follow me on Instagram. That's connect. If you want to join my Team Massive Discord community, you can DM me, say, hey, big, hairy, ugly dude, what's the link? I'll give you the link. I'd love to have you come over. And, whoops, I was going to knock that off. If you guys are interested in coaching, please check out superlivingtheday.com. Check out the coaching tab. I would love to help. It's only $89.40 after the first month. And if you want to go for a year, there is a $6.99 yearly special. I also, let's get that off. If you go to my website as well, superlivingtheday.com, there are workouts, my new book series, Massive Omnibus, which has 5 books already, over 1,500 pages, just a wealth of information. And you can get custom workouts. I do custom workouts. I have apparel. I have a lot of great lifting apparel over there. I like to do that for fun. So if you want to support a small content producer, I would appreciate it. I want to say something before we go. This is what I love to do for a living, and I appreciate each and every one of you. I take your questions seriously. I take your results seriously. And if I ever seem too hard or straightforward on anything, it's because I want the best from each and every one of you. So thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you next week. I'll be here every Friday until I take a dirt nap. Until then, let's absolutely fucking destroy everything.
It's not almost over. It's not almost over. You're not almost there. You're not almost there. You're not almost there.